Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimers Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimers Beer House.
Welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson and Kyle Crawford bringing you another great show. What's up there, Mr. Kyle?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good.
You know, for you're coming back from your trip, you're not as tan as I was thinking. I thought like the desert would just beat the sun beat down on you and you come back like a lobster.
Well, believe it or not, it was cold.
Really?
I mean, the 1 week that I decided to go to the desert, a cold wave comes through. There was snow in the mountains up in Flagstaff. Phoenix was warm. Phoenix was up in the mid-80s or so. But Flagstaff was cool. Vegas was cool. I mean, like cooler, not like cool to be around.
All the viewers out there, all you guys listening, Merle went to Vegas, so we the question has to be asked, right? We have to ask the question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What you do in Vegas?
You know that phrase?
No, I don't. Which one?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Oh,
yeah. Let's just keep it right there.
So, all right,
let's keep this between you and I.
Well,
right?
here's the better question: what happened in Vegas? Does Linda know what happened in Vegas?
Yeah, she was there with me the whole time.
Good. I guess it's acceptable then, right?
Oh yeah. You know, I think one of the things that's kind of cool about traveling is I am a people watcher. I like to see. I like to just like see how strange I am compared to other people and vice versa. And man, Vegas is just
one of the place to go, right?
Oh my gosh, you know, there are brave people all over that place. Like they'll let things hang out that you're like, really, you gonna do that right here? Yeah. And just mostly they were a lot of fun. I'm not a gambler, so I don't. We walked through a casino to get from point A to point B, but I didn't sit down at a single gambling table.
I'm disappointed.
No, I just don't.
Because if you did, Merle, you could have like lost your entire life savings, and you wouldn't have to tell anybody about it.
Right. But it would be a good show.
It would be a great show.
I could do that. Let's go down and just lose the whole fortune.
We should do a show on the Strip, like just sitting here. We got our booth set up, and people are just walking by us.
Our viewers
we might get kicked off of YouTube. The things that they would see.
You'd have to blur everything that walked behind us. I mean, there's more body parts hanging out there than you could imagine. We had our younger kids with us, so they're 13 and 15, almost 16. And I mean, you know, they're old enough, but you're still like, okay, don't touch that lady with the feathers. Okay, don't touch. No. Keep your hand. You know,
close your mouth. Stop staring.
Stop staring. So there's all kinds of stuff. But Vegas was only like 2 days of our trip. We did the mountains and a ton of hiking, some mountain biking, beautiful stuff, neat place. So it was cool. But it's good to be back.
Yeah, good. Well, that's it'll tie right into our show. You threw this down as a topic, and I think it'll be fun. We'll see. We're going to talk what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
We're going to talk that exact idea of, you know, that secret thing. We got to keep a secret. We can't let it come out. We better let's thank a couple of our sponsors here, and then let's get in with the show.
I love it. At Strong Dads, we would love to thank Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. Crimers Beer House down there on Route 128 in Cleveland, Ohio. Check them out. The outdoor patios, I'm sure it's bumping here with the good weather getting turned for us.
With the cicadas flying all over here in the Midwest. Yeah, they're loving it.
Yeah, so for sure, go down there and check them out.
Yeah, sounds good. So also want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Want to thank Casey for coming alongside of us. They are full scale working their landscaping at this point in time in the year. So for all your landscape needs, go down to Casey's in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Check out what they have. They also have a gift shop there. So walk in that gift shop. Really, all kinds of stuff. Everything from gifts for birthdays and stuff to ornamental type gifts. So all kinds of stuff. Go check out Casey's.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. All right, Merle, I got a question for you. It's confession time. It's confession time.
I think that's probably become part of our show, this true confessions. I think it's in a lot of our shows. And I don't know. At some point in time, we're going to have to be careful what we confess.
Maybe.
We're never going to be able to run for any political office because
they're going to take these little sound bites.
Or remember when he was 12? He did. You remember he said it on his show.
I know. Cancel culture. You guys.
We did a cancel culture
show on that on Rock Style Family.
Remember that time?
Well, I was getting ready to say you guys also had the priest on your show for True Confession, right?
Yes.
On Rock Style Family
we
Radio.
had Father Meyer where we confessed it all. Yeah.
Anyways, we got True Confessions, Merle. I need to know, what is one of your best kept secrets that not too many people know about? You got to confess. You got to confess to all the strong dads out there.
Well, I have a few. Some of them I won't talk about here. They'll stay a secret. But yeah, one of them I do think is kind of funny. I've never told anyone this one. This is kind of funny. It's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. So I was in high school, and I will confess this. We were doing some drinking, and
that's a good start of confession.
That's a good start right there. Okay, just you know who you're dealing with here, and I don't remember what happened, but I got mad. Right, and I'm not generally a mad person. Like that wasn't me. I was never the guy getting into fights or anything. But I forget, we were at a party, and I don't know, somebody did something, said something, and I got really angry, really mad, and I went back out to my car, and I was sitting in my car, and I just acting stupid. And I just hauled off, and I had a 1965 Volkswagen. So small little windshield right there in front, nice vertical windshield. I just hauled off, and I punched that windshield. Just thinking, it's nice tempered glass and everything. Yeah. And I shattered the windshield. It's tempered glass, so it's not like I put my hand through it, but it just spider cracked all the way. And you could tell it looked like a baseball hit it. Like it just boom. I was like, so as soon as I hit it, I was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Now I'm in trouble.
So then you're getting even more mad.
And so now I was like, I'm heading home. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, okay, what am I going to tell my dad? Because my dad, we built these cars, right? So he was very aware of what my car looked like and everything. So I knew that he was going to notice. And so finally I got home. I went to bed, and the next day, he walks around and he sees that windshield shattered out, and he's like, okay, so what's going on with your windshield? And I'm like, I don't know, Dad. I was at this party, and I went inside, and I came out later, and it was shattered. I don't know. And I totally just lied. And he looked at me, and you can tell when you're busted. He looked at me, and he was like, yeah, okay. Sure, I got it. But he let it hang. Wow. He didn't keep probing. He never went back at it again. I mean, I had to save the money and get a new windshield, but that was on me. But to this day, I never told him the truth.
To this day,
To this day. Wow. He's 87 years old. Now he wouldn't even know what the story was anymore.
Right.
But no, it was for me being stupid, and I just hauled off and punched my own windshield and shattered the stupid thing.
Wow.
So that's you guys are the first people to hear how stupid that was. Yeah, it's true confessions right there.
That.
How about you? Now, come on,
I don't have anything. Moving on to the show here.
No. I got to hear this. Okay, what happens in Kyle's life stays in his life? No, I don't think so.
Man, so we'll venture back to my 8th grade year.
Okay, those are good years. Aren't they?
Good times. So my 8th grade year, right? Before you get to go adventure into the high school level, you have to take this big test, right? The big proficiency.
Ohio proficiency
test. Yeah, you got it. So from what I remember of this story, is we take one in 7th grade, right? And then you also take one in 8th grade, and you're supposed to see, this progression, and it allows the teachers to kind of put you in the appropriate class.
See whether they should retain you or not.
Right. So 7th grade proficiency, whatever. My scores come back. So we fast forward into 8th grade, and Merle, I remember sitting in Mr. Hafer's class and taking our proficiency test, and there's this really smart girl that sits in front of me, Carly Hahn. If you're out there, Carly Hahn, I appreciate you.
Was Carly cute?
Uh-oh. Yes.
Okay.
So the proficiency gets, the test gets passed out, and I'm just not a smart feller. Like, So I may or may not have cheated on you, Carly Hahn, for this entire proficiency test. And and I wish that was the end of the story. But as the story continues, Merle, the results come back a few weeks later, right? And I remember sitting in math class, and the math teacher pulls me in front of the whole class and proceeds to tell the class how great a progression in my math score I made from 7th to 8th grade. And I'm like just soaking it in, right? Yeah, teachers.
Like he has you up in front of the class.
Yeah, he's got me in front of the class.
He's celebrating how smart you are.
And he's
how
excited that I made such great improvements, and just using me as a testament to how good of a teacher he is. And and so yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So okay, so nobody ever heard that you cheated your way into...
No, heck no.
So that allowed you to go to 9th grade?
So, Mom, I'm sorry. I know you're going to watch this and listen to this. I'm so sorry. Yeah, but it didn't matter because they still knew I was a dum-dum, so I still got put in, the low math class.
So, well, that's a true confession
That's a true confession, yeah. So, Carly Hahn, I appreciate you for allowing me to cheat off you. I don't even think she knows, but yeah. So,
but it's because of Carly Hahn that you got into 9th grade.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So, here's the deal. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about, the idea of secrets that we keep.
Yep.
But we're going to try to get a little bit more serious, but a little bit more useful with it. All of us, there's nobody here that's so squeaky clean that they haven't had something in their life that would not be embarrassing or troubling if it were let out. And so a lot of that has to do with integrity questions. Like, what is it in your personality or your character that is allowing you to take those kinds of risks or to basically take the shortcut? And then what do you do with it? All right. And so we're going to talk about it because as a strong dad, it really plays heavily into your marriage. All right.
Yeah.
And we want to be clear about this, like exactly why. It's not really the lack of transparency. It's really the trust. Yeah. It's the trust that we're ultimately going after. So we want to get into this a little bit today and talk about how we discover and reveal what we're keeping secret. Sometimes we just totally dismiss it ourselves. We ignore, it's no big deal. Everybody's doing it, kind of thing. Just like everybody cheats.
Yep.
Everybody cheats. It's no big deal, and we start to water it down. But it may be something that's going to carry a whole lot more weight to come back and hurt us later.
Right. Okay? So I got a question, Merle. So when we talk about this, obviously, you get a lot of men that come through your door with the coaching. Like, is this something that you see a struggle for a lot of men?
Yeah. One of the things, and I want to just be upfront here, all of us have skeletons in the closet.
Absolutely.
All right. And we know that. Anyone who's ever tried to run for any political office, they find out what they did when they were 3 years old, and it's ridiculous.
Right.
So we all have a level of that. But one of the things that I will hear, and I'll get this tone or actual phrase of, I don't really care what people think about me.
Yeah.
All right. And then sometimes it's the bigger the boy, the bigger the guy that comes in. You know what? These people can kiss my. I don't really care what people think about me.
Yep.
Well, usually when I hear a phrase like that in the setting that I work in, my radar goes off.
Sure.
Like, nah, okay. All right. There's other stuff going on here.
Right.
Okay. Because that's one way that we sort of dismiss that we are doing something that's probably not on target in terms of the kind of person we say we're trying to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so that whole idea of just trying to relieve ourselves of the responsibility. So I do see it a lot. All right. I see it in areas, and this is not an inclusive, this is just examples. Phone.
Yeah.
I don't really care what people see on my phone, but yet the password's not out for their girlfriend or wife, so the phone is kind of hidden. Bank accounts, the number of guys that I deal with, and I'll say this, troubled guys. When I see troubled marriages and those kind of things, and I see shared accounts, that's a red flag. I'll just be honest with you. There's guys out there listening and go, well, we've always had separate accounts. Did I say
Yeah,
shared
you said
accounts?
shared. I was going to clarify.
I mean,
yeah.
separate accounts
Yeah.
that have separate accounts.
Yeah.
That's a red flag.
Yeah.
When we have business dealings that one spouse is not aware of, like, I'm buying this property and my wife, she's not into that anyway, so I'm just going ahead and doing it.
Right.
Like, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Okay. Other things like just money expenditures. Like Linda and I always had a deal when we were first married. Anything over $60.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we arrived at $60, but anything over $60, we were just going to at least talk to each other about.
Yep.
Okay. And then we like adjusted that to like $200.
Sure.
So if I'm going to go buy something for $200 or higher out of our money, okay, then that is something that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. And most of the time it's just no big deal.
Sure.
Right. But if we are spending money, large amounts, and the other person is not aware of that, that's a red flag.
Right, and I think to that point, Jenny and I have the same thing. We set it at $100, and we dance around that a little bit, and it gets a little higher. Obviously as you progress in your marriage, just like you were talking about. But I think this is an important note to make because, if you are sitting around, for me, we sit around the kitchen table at the firehouse, and if I were to tell some of the guys I work with that I do that with my wife, they would be like, why would you do that? You don't have to ask permission to spend money. And it's not necessarily, I don't want it to be misconceived that it's asking permission. I think it's, something we're going to get into this show with the idea that, man, we got to be transparent with your wife. And, we were talking about this before the show, and it's not just like you have to share everything. Like, there's no like secrets in your marriage. In some regards, like, man, my wife doesn't care some of the stuff we talk about at the firehouse. She just doesn't care, right? I'm not going to come home and say, hey, babe, guess what we talked about at the fire? Like, I think that the hope and the idea behind this show is the idea that, the stuff that is big needs to be shared. Like, those are where we can't keep those secrets with our wives. But just like you're saying, Murray, I think it's a great point, great place to start when it comes to the finances and the idea that just sharing, hey, I'm getting ready to go to Lowe's. I might spend about, $200 here, again, not asking for permission, just checking, just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. So that way that because if it's going to be easy for you to go and spend $200 and not have to even get, just, hey, babe, I'm going to do this. Then what happens when something else big comes up in your life? When you set those boundaries and those standards for your relationship, it trickles into bigger things.
Yeah. I want to just go right back. You use the perfect word. The idea here. This is not about asking your spouse for permission.
Yeah.
All right. If you have to ask your spouse for permission, that's a whole nother counseling issue.
Sure.
Okay. Because that's like one person lording power over another if I have to ask for permission. So this is not at all about asking for permission.
Right.
This is about being upfront and transparent so that we can keep the level of trust. So I want all of our strong dads out there to understand this is about trust from the very get-go. And the reason why trust is important is because you kind of alluded to this a little bit, the idea of there are going to be certain things that go wrong in marriages.
Yep.
And if your word is not trustworthy, in other words, there's been skeptical thought about, can I really believe what he says? Then it's going to make it even harder to go through the challenges.
Yeah.
And so if you establish on a regular basis that you are upfront, you're an open book, you're not trying to cover up anything, and then the day comes that you do have something that's challenging, and you look at your wife and you say, here's the story, here's the truth. She is so much more willing to be there to support you and to help you and to work through that. But if you've had this history, and that's what it is, it's the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just my phone. You can't look at it. It's mine. Well, it's just a bank account. There's only a couple $100 in there. It's that little stuff that erodes the marriage and how things are going to run long term. And so for that reason, the idea of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
You've got to have that revelation of being upfront, all right? So we do want to talk about what happens?
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you get this moving And what if you have been living this kind of secretive way, or like a lot of it's just little stuff, right? It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And what I'm telling you is, it is the small stuff that will keep you from tackling the big stuff.
Yep.
Over a period of time.
Yep. So as we definitely get into this, man, when you were talking about the phone issue, which I think is a big thing, obviously now with technology being the way it is. So when we start getting into this, man, the first thing is examining your lifestyle and digging into that, because we were just using examples about the finances with your wife. I think it's even bigger than that. Right now with social media the way it is, I can't tell you the number of people that post these happy pictures of them and their wife and them and their kids, and then you actually start asking them questions, and then they reveal like, man, life sucks right now. Yeah. And it's like, man, we are pretending to be something we're just not. And if we're to examine our lifestyle, man, we have to be full transparent. Like I choose not to, not because my life is perfect, because it's not. I choose not to post stuff like that on Facebook because I don't want to give this facade that my life is peaches and cream, because it's not. Like, I have struggles every day, right? Yeah. But there's so many people that get caught in this, that they can put up this picture of you and your family, which is fine to do. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but just know that sometimes the perception is not always a reality.
Well, that's a great point. Not only is it a secret, but it actually inflates the other positive side. Sure. So it's like, not am I not going to tell everybody that I have a pornography issue, but instead I'm going to constantly post pictures out on social media that shows me loving my wife. Okay. Yeah. And so it actually creates even a greater divide when there's ever an exposure of the truth. Now we are really in, so this is kind of like that whole idea when somebody in the priesthood or ministry, or if they have a falling out, well, the persona has been, wow, they are, whatever, holier than thou, and then they crash and burn over here. So, it's dangerous for us to live that way. We want to be, that's that humbleness, that whole, I just need to be who I am. And I carry dirt. It's something, I'm a work in progress always. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, how do we do this, right? Well, there's a couple of steps we want to run through to help you guys actually wrap your hands around, how do I actually start to live a life where I can have integrity and build trust, keep trust, maintain trust. Maybe I have to restore trust, okay? And the very first thing here is whatever it is that you're doing, all right? When you recognize, like you said, I need to first sort of examine my life. And when I examine, the very first thing I have to do is I've got to admit that what I'm doing is not healthy or right. Maybe it's flat out wrong. I have to admit it. I mean, the whole dismissing of things like my phone or my money accounts or whatever, of dismissing it is just the lie. Yeah. So the first thing really is I have to examine and then admit, like, no, that's probably not a good thing. The pornography I'm looking at, the money, these are things that are not going to help if everybody else starts to find out I'm doing it.
Yeah, and we've done a whole show on pornography, and not to make this show more about that, but I do think, especially since we're talking to men, this is an issue that men deal with. I can tell you multiple guys that I know are dealing with this, and they're in the midst of it, and they're struggling. So the idea of pornography it fits right into this, because how much of that does your wife really know about? I'll be the first to tell you, when I was in the midst of struggling with pornography, Jenny didn't know a lot. Right. And then it got to the point where I'm like, I have to admit, I've done the examination. I'm wrong in this, and I have to tell you the things and what I'm doing and how it's going to wreck our marriage if we don't put a stop to it. And, man, I would just challenge you right now, for any of you guys that are actually still dealing with pornography or in the midst of trying to conquer that and get over that, man, I would pose a question to you, because this is something I posed to a guy that one of my buddies that is dealing with it. I would pose a question to you. Do you love pornography more than your wife? Because a lot of guys say they hate pornography and they hate what it does to them, but then they return to it. So the question, and this isn't necessarily the topic we're talking about, but I just want to pose this question, like, you have to admit to yourself that you do love pornography. Yeah. That's why you continue to return to it. That's because if you didn't love it, you would stop. And so I think once you make that realization, truly examining what's going on in your life, you have to admit to yourself that you do love pornography. You don't love the way it makes you feel afterwards, right? But you do love it. And so when we talk about examining and talk about becoming full transparent, like the first step in that is you have to admit that you're wrong in this.
Yeah, that's great. The next step really, and again, we're faith-based in terms of how we approach things and what we're trying to drive to other men and why we think it's important. The next part, and sometimes this just gets skipped, like we act like we can hide, but it's a true confession to God.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the first part of acknowledging it is actually a confession to yourself. You know, you confess to yourself, you realize what you've done is wrong. The next step, though, is to actually bring God into the picture, to confess this to God, right? Yep. To bring it in, to pray, to bring the Holy Spirit in. You know, I know we have plenty of Catholic guys out there. I mean, and that would be this time of confession. This time to actually get it out. And so we always talk about the importance of confessing or owning our sin in the face of God. And so acknowledging that to God is a great second step here.
Yeah. And with that, you know, just as you mentioned, Merle, being that we are obviously faith-based here, man, this honestly is a reason why sometimes Christianity and sometimes believers get a bad rap because, you know, again, you are saying one thing, but then behind closed doors you're doing another thing, and it's that whole hypocrites. And, like, we're all flawed, which is more reason why we need a Jesus. Like, we need that in our life. And I think when you're full transparent with that, when you are telling people, like, man, I am flawed. I do suck at life sometimes, right? But that's more reason why I need Jesus. Like, I think that goes a lot further than saying, like, I got my whole life together, but then behind, again, just being full transparent when you're not that. That's why people say believers are hypocrites.
Yeah. So being upfront, and then that means this is the third step here would be the idea of confessing to others. And when I mean others, I mean this could be the priest in the case of being Catholic, but it could also be confessing to those that it involves. Okay. Yeah. And so and I want to be, this is kind of tricky because you had mentioned this kind of at the top of the show. Sometimes we don't need to bring up dirt from the past if it's going to cause more harm, more damage than good.
Sure.
Okay? So I want to be very careful here. I'm not dismissing confession, but if what I have done has been hurting somebody, and I know it's been hurting them, that I've got proof of that, okay, then I need to confess that to that person. If I knowingly have done something to hurt my wife, maybe I went out and I spent $10,000 and bought something without her approval or understanding, recognition of it, and I know it hurt her, okay, then I need to confess to her, right? I need to own that and confess to her. All right, so the next one, it kind of sounds a little bit like we've covered this part, but not really. So the next part is the idea of, well, what if you actually did something and you got caught? Okay, so let's say you did, your wife did find pornography on your phone, and you got caught. What should you do with that?
Right, so this is, because at this point, there is no justification. Like you can't continue to, you can't continue to say that, like, oh, it's okay. Like you've been had, right?
Yeah.
So this is when we talk about this all the time on this show, because it is so important, especially as men, as strong dads, as strong men. We got to own stuff, right? We got the buck is going to stop with us. So if you've been had, if you've been caught, man, don't run from it. Don't try and put more excuses. Don't lie about it. Like, just own it. Like, you screwed up, and there's going to be some time, like, because if you've been caught, doing something, having, hiding something, having that secret, that pornography, the whatever, man, like, it's got to stop.
Right.
And there has to be, because at that point, trust has been broken. Yeah. Right. And trust is so finicky, man. It is so hard to get and so easy to lose.
Right. This is so big because I get this personality that comes into my office a lot, okay? And it tends to be more of a male personality. And it tends to be a strong male. And so hear me out with this. This is that idea. I being a cyclist, I kind of always think of it in my mind as this is the Lance Armstrong syndrome. Okay. Where you've got somebody who's just dominating, somebody who is strong, somebody who's successful. They've had a lot of control in their life.
Sure.
And they get caught. Okay. And when they get caught, they avoid ownership.
Yeah.
All right. And so they won't confess, they won't own, and then they actually double down on the lies or the lack of transparency. All right. So they have to create a whole other avenue of a story of cover up.
Sure.
And so you see this with strong personalities of people who have had success doing what they're doing, and they haven't done the very first part of actually acknowledging that what they did was wrong. You see that we saw it with Pete Rose. Okay. We saw that with some of our home run hitters back in the 90s who were all juiced up.
Yeah.
And we had a season there where like everybody was hitting 100 home runs or like, how's this happening? I don't know. Just had a good year.
Right.
But they doubled down on this.
Yeah.
And so if you are actually caught, man, this is not only have you broken trust, but you're going to blow it absolutely out of the water. I mean, there's still people who will not do any business dealings at all with Lance Armstrong because he doubled down.
Sure.
He doubled down on the lie. And, he finally, by the time he came clean, people had been so hurt and broken that they just couldn't travel that road with him again.
Sure.
And that's what happens. I mean, you know what? You might have finally turned it around, but you broke us so bad, I won't even dance anymore.
And that goes to the point that, man, there's a lot of power in admitting you're wrong. That is totally counterculture right now. Like when that whole idea of doubling down or trying to, try and gain all your trust back in 1 second because I'll buy you $1 million, whatever.
Right.
I'll donate $1 million to you. Like, man, right now our culture is so quick to just be like, oh, it wasn't me, I didn't do it, and the admitting part is not there. And man, as believers, we're called to just confess and called to ask for that forgiveness, man. And if the person that you've hurt doesn't want to accept your apology and your forgiveness, then it's going to take time, and that's going to be on them. But all we can do is admit that we were in the wrong.
Yeah. You can't ask. People don't have to guarantee that they're going to forgive you.
Sure.
But you can ask for that. Okay.
Right.
So then the next step is, man, when you have recognized that you have hurt somebody, you've hurt somebody. You have to not just own it, but you have to pay back restitution where it is appropriate. Okay. In other words, if I was being not being transparent and telling lies, and it was at the expense of another person, then where restitution is appropriate, I need to cover it. Okay.
Sure. Scripture
even talks about paying it back and then some.
Yeah.
The idea that you are, it's not so much that you're paying it back. I mean, that's great that you get the money gets returned or whatever it is, but it's really the good faith effort. And I'm actually trying to rebuild the trust here. So not only am I going to give you back, but I'm going to give you back for sort of the headache, the problem, the pain that I caused. So you pay back that restitution.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's good stuff. One of the next things I think maybe taking some of those necessary steps to kind of enough is enough, right? So you've been caught in a lie. You've not been full transparency. Some of the things that we can do as men, and I think these are so maybe not even just for those situations. I think they can be applicable for a lot of different situations. But man, we have to learn to first set boundaries. If you are struggling with pornography, if you are struggling with making bad decisions, going out on the weekends and getting hammered drunk, and that's not uplifting your family, man, you got to set boundaries.
Right.
Like enough is enough. At some point, you have to say, I'm done with this life, right? And you have to not only say that, then you have to move forward and put into place actions. Whether that's I can tell you for me, when it came to the pornography, man, when I got home from work, I was tired, I was hungry. Those are the bad times for me, right? So you have to put things in your life. You have to put boundaries that are not going to allow you to go to those places. If you're having an affair with someone at your office, man, if that means you have to leave your job, then that's what that means. But you have to set those boundaries, and kind of on top of that, We had a show not too long ago with Russell, right? When he talked about doing absolutes, things you have to put in your life that are absolutes. He was talking about, when it came to, his wife and then, became his ex-wife and things that he's doing in his life now. He's setting absolute. These are things that have to be in place in my life in order for me to jump into that endeavor. And the same can be said about this, man. Set absolutes in your life, things that you're not going to waver on. These are the things I have to have in my life.
Yeah.
These are the things that in my marriage are going to have to be there. If there is a rebuilding process where your wife has lost trust in you, like there has to be absolutes that you set because it's going to take time to rebuild that trust. And part of that is having those boundaries, having those absolutes.
Yeah. I mean, in a man's arrogance and his pride, he will tell a little bit of the truth. I may have cheated a little bit. And then he will put in a little bit of a boundary. In other words, well, I'm just thinking like drinking here. I probably been drinking a little bit too much. I've been sneaking the bottle and all this stuff. And they'll say, I'm going to cut back. No, I mean, that is the sign that we have a problem. I'm going to cut back. That's the idea that you are one who can manage yourself. And we know better than that. And so that's where the absolutes and the boundaries come in. I always, that's a guy like, man, I've been smoking 20 cigarettes a day. I'm going to cut it back to 5. Well, let me. I'm going to invest in a bet on you that you're going to lose this one. Okay, you're going to smoke 5 cigarettes for the next 5 days, and within a month you're going to be back up to 30 cigarettes. And because it's the nature of our beast. All right, and so bringing in the absolutes and the boundaries like you talked about, and stop lying to yourself about, well, I won't do it as much, or I'll only do it at this time, or no. I mean, you've got to set the hard boundary.
Which when it comes to things like addictions and stuff, man, I've heard this before that you don't have a problem unless you say you have or you're not an addict unless you say you're an addict, and that mindset. Well, I'm just want to say this, man. Then admit it. Like, enough is enough. If you have a drinking problem, you're not an addict until you admit it. Well, go ahead and admit it then, right? Yeah. Especially if that addiction, whatever you're dealing with, is causing strains, is causing difficulties in your marriage. If you're getting kicked out of your house because you're doing whatever, because you're looking at pornography, because you're drinking, because you're gambling, whatever that is, man, enough is enough. Like, we have to admit it. And whatever that looks like, you have to learn to set those boundaries.
Yeah. It also brings me to the thought of like smoking pot. Okay, so I've worked with my share of addicts, and I bring this topic up because this is going to probably hit some people wrong. But the idea here is smoking pot, legalizing marijuana, is becoming more and more and more acceptable. Here's the challenge: I have yet to meet an addict, a recovering addict, that will mess with pot. And because it is kind of like, well, I'm only going to smoke a couple cigarettes a day.
The gateway.
It is the gateway. And again, people, oh, no, that's not true. I'm just telling you, when I work with addicts, when they finally come clean, even pot is off the charts. Like, no, I can't do this because it's what got me where I went. In fact, some of them even go so far as to just smoking cigarettes. Like, that's the one that still gets me going down that road again. And so they actually have to swear off the cigarettes. But I'm just saying, like, if the addiction thing is your problem, you have to be hardcore about eliminating anything that would tempt you.
Man, that's so good. And we briefly talked about this, but as we close up the show, I want to make a note. Man, you got to bring God along for this one. Like, you have to. When we look at Scripture, you look at Luke and 22:40, where it talks about, Jesus clearly tells us, like, he's like, pray that you won't fall into temptation. Yeah. Man, what a simple prayer, but what that can do for you, man. If you're struggling, if you have temptations that are wrecking your world right now, man, you got to bring God alongside. You have to ask Him to help you. And then on top of that, in 1 Corinthians it talks about how God's not going to put anything in your life. Nothing in your life is going to be more than what you can handle.
Yeah.
And it is so true. And it's hard to believe that sometimes because we can't see God's face, and God can't actually utter, speak words like face to face with you. But man, his scripture, his word is so true. He's not going to put anything in your life. Nothing in this world will ever be more than what you can handle. God will make sure of that. And man, as a man of faith, that is so powerful to know that's the promise that God's making for us.
Nothing will be put in front of you that you can't handle with him.
Yes.
And I think that's the challenging part.
Yep.
Because people always say, well, I heard God would never put anything in my life I can't handle. Without him, you're gonna get overblown by what you get exposed to. But with him, he will help carry you through. And so I think that's something that us guys need to always keep in mind, and that's that humility of surrender from having to tell the lies and do the cover up. All right, so hopefully what's said happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Hopefully that is just kind of a saying and kind of a joke. The idea that we try to live a transparent life. We are an open book. We are a flawed book, okay? Yep. So the idea, I don't need, if I'm readily able to admit my flaws, I have less and less to cover up, okay? And I need to especially be pure with that, with the people that I'm responsible for and that I say that I love, because that's the foundation of trust that I have to walk in every day. So our challenge for you strong dads out there this week is the idea of just examining your life and seeing where your cover-ups might be. Okay, and this doesn't mean that you have to expose everything that you've ever covered up. It means you need to recognize what you are covering up and what it's saying about you. Why are you covering it up? And then take the steps that we just went through to clean it up, or to stop it, or to confess it, or to pay restitution for it. So those are the things that we want to challenge you guys with. This is a great way to keep and build the trust. And that's what this whole topic actually is about. Remember, the reason why I'm not going to talk about what happened in Vegas is because I don't want other people to not trust me anymore. Yeah. And so I've got to be able to be trustworthy.
Good stuff, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope it sparked some good conversations. Man, share the heck out of this show when it drops.
Sir.
We would love for you guys to help us out with that. If you guys have any questions, if you guys want us to dive into a show, to have a topic that you're struggling with right now, man, reach out. We would love to come alongside of you, try and figure it out together. Merle and I are not perfect by any stretch. Merle just got back from Vegas, so we know he's not.
I haven't told all my stories.
But we really do appreciate you guys. Share, like I said, share the heck out of this show on all the platforms, man. Give us a good rating if you like what you're hearing, man. Share this to somebody that maybe has some secrets, has some stuff that they need to just get it out. Hopefully it sparks a conversation. Really appreciate Crimer's Beer House and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Greatly do appreciate that they're supporting that. Go check those two places out and let them know that you heard about them from Strong Dads. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, and if you are kind of caught in a lie, struggling with that, reach out to me at rocksolidfamilies.org. Shoot me an email. This is what we do. Help the family, the marriage recover through these and walk through this as a coaching opportunity. So give me a call, reach out. The call 812-576-7625. Sign us out, brother. Let's get out of here. Let's go clean up your lies that you've been telling all day.
Sounds great. Go out there and be some strong dads.
I'd like to welcome Casey's Outdoor Solutions as a new sponsor to our podcast. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.